Great day for an outdoor event. Thank you everyone for coming, and we have a great group gathered here today. As you can see, I wanted to acknowledge Mayor Coleman, who's a great hockey player himself. Also Sheriff Bostrom, who's here, Chief Smith, Minneapolis City Council President Barb Johnson, just to show you it's not just a St. Paul issue. It crosses the city borders and actually crosses the whole state, which I'll get to in a minute. And also St. Paul Como Hockey Association President Bill Burkhart is also with us. So I want to thank them all for coming. There's going to be, as I mentioned, a big game here this afternoon. What time does it start, Bill? 5:30. So if anyone wants to, and they'll be practicing starting at
probably 5:15.
At 5. Okay, that's funny. Okay, they're practicing starting at 5:15 if anyone wants to catch this rink in use. We're here to discuss the growing problem of metal theft here in the Twin Cities and across Minnesota. Sheriff Bostrom and Chief Smith, as law enforcement officers, understand and know all too well that metal theft is on the rise. Last week, I met with local law enforcement officials in Moorhead. We were at a business, electric business, that actually has suffered this last year $150,000 in damage. Year before that, $200,000 in damage. Someone actually stole their truck because it had their insignia of an electric company on the side so that they could use that truck to go take metal somewhere else. I was up in Fargo and Moorhead with Senator Hoeven of North Dakota, and there we were at a business that had been broken into 7 times in just the last year of thieves looking for copper. So it just gives you a sense that we're not just talking about a crime that's here in the urban area. It is really statewide, and it's across the United States. Thieves recently stole, as you know, 256 feet of copper piping from the outdoor ice rink. As scrap metal, the piping was worth only a few $100s, but as you have probably heard, the damage would have cost the city about $20,000 to fix it. I'd like to congratulate the city as well as the local businesses for working so hard to fix the rink so that our kids can get back to playing hockey. Of course, we've timed this perfectly as the day that the Wild tickets are going on sale, and now that the Wild are going to begin playing too, I think we can all agree that you just can't get too much hockey in Minnesota. The city of St. Paul isn't alone, as I mentioned. Just to give you a few more examples, in Minneapolis, thieves actually went in and stole copper from a church's air conditioning system, and in Isanti County, they actually took 200 Bronze Star markers from veterans' graves on Memorial Day. That's what we're dealing with here. So if anyone thinks, well, this is just something that happened with this ice rink or something that happened in a few places, this is a national problem. In one study, the U.S. Department of Energy found that the total cost to industries affected by copper wire theft could exceed over $900 billion every year. Between 2009 and 2011, the National Insurance Crime Bureau identified over 25,000 insurance claims made on metal theft. To put that number in perspective, it marked an 81% increase of the claims made between 2006 and 2008. So this isn't just a one-time event. It's on the rise, and it's happening across the country. Why is it happening? Well, there has been an increase in the price of these metals like copper, and a lot of that is because of growth in China and India, where they're seeing major building expansions. So the price of this has gone up because of these expansions. What happens is the thieves steal the copper and other metals, and then they go to scrap metal dealers and try to sell it. As we all know, the vast number of scrap metal dealers are law-abiding. They don't want to buy stolen property or be complicit in the damage caused to property and public infrastructure. That's why I've worked extensively with the National Scrap Metal Association group on this legislation, and we've made some changes to understand their business, but at the same time we decided with what we're seeing in this kind of increase that we had to introduce the bill. In recent years, many states, including Minnesota, have taken action to combat metal theft. Minnesota has one of the toughest laws in the country, but it's not enough. Why? Well, these thieves are stealing the metal, and then they go sell it in another state that may not have a law at all or may have a weaker law. That is why Senator Lindsey Graham and I decided that we needed to introduce a national bill so that at least we have a floor, so there's some minimum requirements in place for the country, and also doing things on the federal basis, like whether it's a seatbelt law, whether it's a Violence Against Women Act, it often calls attention to a crime in a different way and encourages state and law enforcement to do more to combat it. The legislation has been endorsed by a wide array of groups, including the National Association of Home Builders, the National Rural Electric Co-op Association, many law enforcement national groups, as well as energy and construction industry groups. It has broad support from workers because they are the ones at risk. If someone steals a copper piping, then someone else goes in a few weeks later to turn on the heat, whether it's at a public building or not. It's the people that are turning on the heat that are at the most risk. When we were meeting with people in Moorhead and in Rochester, there's an incredible number of workers that showed up because they're very concerned about their own safety. What does the legislation do? Well, first of all, it makes it a federal crime if someone actually steals this kind of metal and copper piping from critical infrastructure, as defined by federal law. That's things like the electricity grid. Secondly, it makes it clear that you can only buy, if you're a scrap metal dealer, you can only take checks and not cash for anything over $100 if you have someone try to sell you the scrap metal. That'll obviously make it easier for us to identify who these people are. It also contains a do not buy provision, which bans scrap metal recyclers from buying certain items unless the sellers establish with written documentation that they are authorized to sell the scrap metal in question. So it's pretty practical ideas. We think it's really important to get it done. I've been encouraged by the bipartisan support we have. Senator Hovind's on the bill along with Senator Graham. Also, we have Senator Schumer of New York on the bill, and certainly a senator from New York can speak with much authority about what can happen if you damage critical infrastructure in a major city like New York City. Three of the four of us are members of the Judiciary Committee, so I feel very good about the bill getting passed through the committee this year. And then we have to take it to the floor, and I'm very hopeful that we can get this done. It makes perfect sense, and we just simply cannot put people at risk, workers at risk, and certainly not the costs that you see St. Paul could have had to incur if it wasn't for some helpful businesses, if in fact this damage was so severe and no one had come to their rescue. People have to understand how serious this is and take this crime as serious and be as sophisticated as the thieves that are stealing the metal. So thank you very much. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Coleman. And I'm happy I did this whole thing without gloves. So there you go.
Well, thank you, Senator. I really want to thank the Senator for taking a problem that has a national scale and national scope and really recognizing the localized impacts of it. The situation that we had out here at Phelan, when, as the Senator pointed out, a couple $100 worth of metal was taken, but potentially threatened our ability to put an ice rink out here, which potentially threatened a season of skating for a lot of kids on the east side of the city of St. Paul, the tournaments that they host out here. It was a very expensive proposition. Thankfully, in this instance, we had a great local company, NAC Mechanical, that stepped up, provided the support for us to be able to get this back up and running, and that was very, very helpful to us. But we've seen instances across the city of St. Paul where thieves that have gone in trying to take precious metal, copper particularly, out of houses that have rendered a house very unsafe. Our ability to restore a house that may have been lost to foreclosure, trying to get that back in the hands of a family is jeopardized when the thieves go in and steal the metal. They create dangerous situations in the community when they interrupt gas lines that can obviously result in a very serious situation. A couple of years ago, we saw thieves that had gone down into the tunnels under the streets, and actually one lost their lives while they were trying to steal some of the precious metals. They hit an electrical line. So they're endangering not only the safety of the community as a whole, they're endangering their own safety. And so I really appreciate this effort to try to figure out how we stem it, how we can take the tough laws in Minnesota, but really enforce them by having a national standard about how metal recyclers are going to approach these products. This is a crazy, crazy trend. It creates huge problems for us on the local level. It creates dangerous situations and potentially jeopardizes a lot of the good work that we've done in the city of St. Paul. These ice rinks, I take personal pride in these ice rinks because over the years they have been used, the three rinks that we have across the city of St. Paul that are refrigerated, have provided countless hours of fun and opportunities for kids to get out and play hockey and get healthy, and we think that that's important. We don't want those opportunities jeopardized in the city of St. Paul because of lax laws, quite frankly, across the country. So thank you, Senator, for your work, and appreciate the opportunity to continue to work with you as we go forward on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Council President Johnson has taken a leadership role on this issue in the city of Minneapolis.
Well, thank you, Senator, for your attention to this growing problem. In the city of Minneapolis, we saw a big uptick, and I represent part of North Minneapolis. It was very, very evident after the tornado that we had 2 summers ago, and it's just been very much a growing problem. And so we had a scrapping task force and had the industry at the table, and they made some really good suggestions for us about asking when someone is convicted of this metal theft, that geographic restrictions are placed on them. The metal, where you sell your metal in Minneapolis, is a very contained area. And so we're going to try and see that people that have been convicted of this crime are not allowed to be in that area. And then also that there are sanctions included in the penalties that they serve, that they cannot sell for a particular length of time. They're prohibited from selling. And what the industry tells us is they have really good photographic records that are taken of people when they sell scrap, and so it's not a onerous duty for them. But it's a problem in our neighborhoods. People are actually using their backyards to scrap metal, and neighbors complain about it. And so it's a real issue, both at the neighborhood level, but then also this critical infrastructure. Along Broadway Avenue, Verizon Communications had cell phone equipment on top of the Capri Theater on Broadway, and it was ripped off 3 months in a row. They would put new equipment on, and the thieves would come back and take it again. So a loss that was over $150,000 for that communications company. So it is a real problem, and I thank the senator for working on this issue with us. Thank you.
Thank you. The chief actually got an award, right, from the International Association of Police for breaking up an auto theft ring where they were actually selling the parts to scrap metal dealers for the copper and metal and other things in the cars.
Yes, and I want to thank Senator Klobuchar. Thank you. I know I speak for law enforcement, not just locally but nationally, for this work as far as holding thieves and people that are stealing from critical infrastructure accountable, but also recyclers, because we have to have strong regulations to make sure that people are held accountable. And I want to give you 2 quick examples. Most recently, last year, we had an individual that took a saw late at night up on University Avenue, and we talk about critical infrastructure connecting St. Paul and Minneapolis, our light rail central corridor line. This individual stole copper piping. Luckily, we were able to apprehend this individual, and the copper piping that he stole was worth about $200 to $300, but to replace it cost over $20,000. There's a tremendous cost involved with this to the public, to businesses and others, and that's why this federal legislation is so important for all of us. When we built our beautiful Rondo Library on University and Dale, many of you have graced the halls of our Rondo Library twice in a row, and I used to be the commander of that district, and my office was right across the street. Right towards the end of the construction project, we had a couple thieves that went in and stole all sorts of copper piping and copper wiring. Actually, it got so bad that we had to have officers work with the construction manager to make sure that during off hours that we could secure that critical infrastructure so that building could be completed. So it's very critical. It's a national issue. I want to thank the senator again. I think this is a much bigger issue than most people realize. The theft of precious metals is one of the fastest growing property crimes in the United States today. So this is timely, it's important, and it helps us in law enforcement to do our job even better. Thank you again, Senator.
Good. Thank you. I know Sheriff will be available to answer questions, right? Thank you for being here. Bill, you want to talk about it from the Association of the Youth Hockey League here?
I'm the president of Johnson Como Hockey, and we have a really proud hockey community here. And in the inner city of St. Paul, we are running short on players. It's a very expensive sport, and the cost of this rink, we work out of North Dale and Phelan Rec Center, and these rinks provide us somewhere in the range of $18,000 to $20,000 in savings that we can use to get our teams on the ice. Ice time is about $170 an hour indoors, and if we had to charge our kids to pay that price, we wouldn't have as many kids playing as we do. At this particular rink, we use about 8 to 12 hours a week just for association hockey. At $170 an hour, that adds up pretty quickly. And the cost, I think, is a little overwhelming when you talk about the residual effect. The cost to the city to replace all these things is one cost. The cost to the community is another cost, because it costs our hockey association to have to find a different way to get our kids on the ice. The other thing is we want to introduce hockey to kids in our neighborhoods, and if we don't have a hockey presence here, we can't show them what it's all about. So just the open skating that's up here shows the community that we're still here and that hockey is alive in St. Paul. The other cost is to our volunteers who are up here every single night flooding and trying to keep these rinks clean, and the cost to them we have a limited base of volunteers. Their hours are very precious to us, and when we have to redo things because of a $200 theft, it really hurts our hockey community. We're a community-based program, and we do a lot of community fundraising to keep our fees low, and this cost is great to our program. We just appreciate the fact that there's some attention being drawn to it. This is the second year in a row that this has happened here at Phelan, and it doesn't happen in June. It happens right before we're getting ready to flood the rink, so that we lose precious hours, and every hour is very expensive to us. So I would just like to thank everyone here for drawing attention to this. Our program and our community appreciate it.
This is a problem across the board, and we should do everything we can to protect it, but our main focus is to cut off the supply so that they will have a hard time stealing, because we're going to catch them, but they also are going to have a hard time selling, because we're going to track them where they sell it. Okay? Is that it? Okay, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Good job.
You look good up there.